So good afternoon, everyone. It is 3 o'clock, 3 p.m. here in the Netherlands. It is 1/11/2021. And today on All Saints Day, and many of you are saints because you are joining a meeting on a bank holiday in your country. Today we celebrate our online technology meeting number 100. 100 online technology meetings since we started on 1st of April 2020. Thank you, all of you. Thank you so much for the amazing support that you are giving us. We'll continue with these online meetings every Monday at 3 o'clock, rain or shine, All Saints Day or another day. Here we are to help the community. Welcome to our online technology meeting on white lasers and supercontinuum generation. As a supporter of Real Madrid, my favorite color is white. And I know, white is not a color because it is not defined by a single wavelength, but by a combination of all the colors in the rainbow. And we heard from many EPIC members there is a growing interest in the business around white lasers. Great reason for an EPIC online meeting on Monday, November 1st. Back in 1969, Robert Alfano and Stan Shapiro, working for GTE Lab in New York, shot a green picosecond laser pulse into a piece of quartz and calcite. Magic happened. They discovered almost by accident that the light coming out of the crystal transformed into a white continuum of frequencies that span from 400 nanometers blue to 800 nanometers red. Because essentially, supercontinuum happens when we have a laser source and a nonlinear element, a nonlinear optical fiber, a nonlinear crystal, a nonlinear photonic integrated circuit, you name it. And you know what? In EPIC, we have all that tech. Funny that nonlinear properties of optical fibers have always been a headache. For example, we always wanted to avoid dispersion. When you input a certain wavelength, you wanted to receive the same spectrum hundreds of kilometers away. However, highly non-linear fibers are about to revolutionize the industry as the secret ingredient in current supercontinuum generation lasers. Ask the success stories of NKT Photonics or LEUKOS. So let's explore the applications with the end users themselves. For example, DAMAE Medical, which have seen supercontinuum generation lasers as the ideal light source for OCT for skin imaging. Furthermore, gas sensing applications are obvious because the goal is to monitor many wavelengths being absorbed by different gases at the same time. With NORBLIS lasers, we can reach supercontinuum generation all the way to 10 micrometers in the mid-infrared. Supercontinuum lasers can also be ultra-fast, even operating in femtosecond regime. In microscopy, supercontinuum generation lasers are now the perfect source for CARS, coherent anti-Stokes Raman scattering, and other biotech technologies where we need a pulse diffraction limited laser. And in the academic and R&D sectors, supercontinuum lasers have become the Swiss army knife of all lasers, as they give researchers all the wavelength range they need for their experiments. But there are still many challenges for the present and future of supercontinuum. Can we reduce the size? Can we test the nonlinear fiber in volume? Can we use other nonlinear elements such as photonic integrated circuits? And looking ahead, those working in neuroscience have shown great interest in a supercontinuum laser that could operate in the 250 to 300 nanometer range. That's where proteins, genes, and DNA show up. We still do not know how the brain works. These lasers can help discover how. We want to explore the business cases for supercontinuum lasers between now and 2025. 13 times European champion. And remember, the 1st of November. So thank you very much for being EPIC and joining this online meeting on the 1st of November. We have here some of the most important companies in the sector for supercontinuum generation. I'm talking about Leproux or NKT Photonics or NORBLIS. We have them all here for finding potential cooperations with companies in the end user side. Let's see how the magic happens for the next 2 hours. My name is Jose Pozo, and together with Francesca Moglia, to host this meeting and to make sure that you find these connections. But of course, it's all up to you. All I ask you in the next 2 hours that you generate one lead. I'm here talking on behalf of a fantastic team of experts, half of them with a PhD in photonics, looking to help the industry. Together we organize events, we provide access to a big network, we help you raise capital. If you're looking for raising capital for your company, we have the biggest website to find a job in photonics, justphotonics.com, and also thanks to our colleague Tracy Vanik, who provide you with customized market data to all our members, 750 members. Today we started the second half of the season 5, number 100. If you put together also the quantum, and you put together the virtual company visits, and you put together also the product releases, more than 400 hours of meetings in the last 1.5 years. Today is Supercontinuum generation, but pay special attention to the one that is happening on the 6th of December. Medical devices, when we are bringing the medical industry together with the laser and the integrated photonics communities. Write that down. That's an important, very important meeting. And also for those of you who are doing a lot of business with the quantum technology communities, and I know many of you are, on Wednesday, we talk about ion traps, gravitometers, and other quantum sensors, a really growing market. But talking about growing markets, today is Supercontinuum generation. And first of all, I would like to acknowledge the great support of Laser Focus World, our media partner that is connecting the EPIC members with the laser industry. Thank you very much, Laser Focus World, for all the promotion you are doing of the EPIC activities. But most important, this meeting wouldn't be possible with the support of our sponsors today, Lithium Lasers. Thanks to their innovative laser platform, Lithium 6 lasers, they emit perfectly clean, pedestal-free pulses with duration in the 150 femtoseconds and average power up to 10 watts. All the way from Sweden, we have NYFORS. And NYFORS is the company that provides the customized fiber solutions, but also the advanced glass processing and preparation equipment for specialty optical fiber splicing operations. Also, we like to thank Modulight all the way from Finland. They provide the semiconductor lasers, but also the turnkey solutions to offer solutions already to end users, especially in the ophthalmic market. NKT Photonics, thank you very much for supporting this event. NKT Photonics is the market leader in supercontinuum generation lasers, and they actually have today the solutions, the 390 to 2,400 nanometers, and they offer the guaranteed 10,000 hours service-free operation. And last, but definitely not least, coming all the way from Neuchâtel, SUS MicroOptics. The company is one of the ones in the front head of the European micro-optics revolution. If you need wafer-level optics, you have to talk to SUS MicroOptics, one of the best platforms to develop micro-optics. And one of the best scientists that I know in the field of lasers work for EPIC and leads the laser activity. And her name, all of you know her. Her name is Dr. Francesca Moglia. Francesca, what's going to happen in the next 2 hours?
Thanks a lot, Jose. Thanks a lot for the introduction. So here is a bit the overview of our typical order of speakers, so the one without the times, but with the people that will speak the most. But actually, we don't want to show you only this order of speakers. We want to show you everybody that actually sign up for this meeting that represent the full value chain of this topic. So white lasers and supercontinuum generation are interested for a few topics. So as you see here, end user in bioimaging, in OCT for spectroscopy, but also for in general medical applications, and maybe even for process monitoring in different applications. Then we have, of course, people coming from the laser manufacturing side. So maybe just ultra fast lasers, but also those really, the lasers, the white laser generators, let's say, so those that are really have a couple of words to say today. But then we cannot forget everything that is behind, because you cannot just make a white lasers without, for example, the right optics and coatings, a metrology and testing platform that can help you. There are photonic components, the integrator that, of course, would like maybe to integrate your white laser in their systems. That could be for hyperspectral imaging or imaging in general. Process monitoring is very important. And then there is a lot of R&D, because they actually, scientists need a lot of white lasers. They are really interested in this. So I would say, let's leave the floor to the speakers and to all of you for an interesting and possibly business-rich meeting. Thank you, Jose.
Thank you so much, Francesca. Grazie mille. This meeting is also live streaming YouTube. So thank you, YouTubers, for joining there. If you want to post any questions, I will read in the room. Also, you want to get in touch with any of the participants today, all you have to do is send me an email, jose.pozo@epictasasoc.com, and I will make the introduction. And this, of course, also valid for people who will be here in the Zoom room. Use the private chat as much as possible and write to each other. I want to see you typing. That means that you're doing business. And today, we wanted to start the meeting with a company that made a big difference in the industry for supercontinuum degeneration. So we go all the way to Denmark. We go all the way to close to Copenhagen in the north, and we visit NKT Photonics. Deepak Nair, product line specialist for NKT Photonics. Thank you very much for starting the supercontinuum generation meeting. It couldn't be otherwise. The floor and the attention of everyone on 1st of November, All Saints Day, goes to you. And we have Deepak in the room.
Yes, I'm here, Jose.
It's great to see you again, Deepak.
Yeah, likewise. And thank you for that very kind introduction as usual. I hope everybody can see my screen now.
Very clearly.
Yes, again, thanks. And I feel really privileged to talk to all of us about the success we have had between NKT Photonics as a supplier of white light lasers and DAMAE Medical, who is a bioimaging company doing OCT imaging of skin. And this has been a success story so far. And I'm really proud to share what we have done here and to get there with DAMAE. So jumping right into the presentation here. So a bit of history about the NKT group. So it's a very old Danish company, has roots back from 1891, where they started making cables. And they still make cables. And NKT Photonics is actually more of a high-tech wing of this mothership, which is called NKT AS. And they started about in the 2000s, putting together some R&D activities in fiber optics and lasers. And they came up with their first white light source back in 2003. And in 2009, I'm sorry. In 2009, NKT Photonics came into existence as a company by itself. Yeah. And here we are. You can see the red laser out there, which is our third generation of supercontinuum lasers, which has been released a couple of years ago, and it's called the Photonium. Yes. So looking at NKT Photonics at a glance, what we are, where do we sell, and all that. So we are a supplier of fiber-based laser systems and sensing systems, and we are headquartered in Denmark, and we are more than 400 employees at the moment. And the main markets that we sell into are medical and life science, industrial, which consists of semiconductor, sorting, device characterization, etc. And recently, we have also started selling a lot into aerospace and defense. And our products are mainly, obviously, the white light lasers, the Super K brand that we are known for. And we also have ultra precision single frequency lasers selling under the Coherus brand. We do have ultra fast lasers under the Origami, Aeropulse, and Katana brands. And we do have fiber-based sensing systems under the LEUKOS brand. We also sell gain fibers and polymer crystal fibers, for example, under the Aerogain and Aero. Yeah. So why do you choose a Super K or a supercontinuum laser from NKT Photonics? You do that because we are an integrated laser manufacturers with a lot of in-house technology. We develop our own mode lock oscillator seats, which are the hearts of any Super K lasers. And we develop our own highly nonlinear fibers. We have our own facility in Sweden making the glass and making the preforms, and we do have a facility in Denmark which draws the fibers. So we are actually in control of each and every step that involves the production of a supercontinuum laser. And on top of that, we can also boast a really extensive in-house reliability program, which not many other supercontinuum manufacturers on this earth can do. At any point of time, we do have more than 80 systems down in our cellar in a reliability program and continuously operating and turning up reliability data. And that's what you see a small photo on the right-hand corner there. Yeah. And In this collaboration with DAMAE, what we have offered DAMAE is actually an industrial laser, which is the Super K Evo industrial white light lasers from NKT Photonics. And the major highlights of this laser is that it is a broadband source as most supercontinuum lasers, and it can deliver light between 400 and 2400 nanometers. It has a relatively high rep rate, about 78 megahertz, which is really useful for biomedical imaging, because the higher the rep rate, you can actually average a lot more pulses and reduce the noise. And it's a compact laser, and it's a really rugged industrial design. So it's also really ideal for integrating into equipments as an OEM laser. And the building blocks of this Evo laser has, historically the roots from the legendary Super K Extreme platform of the NKT Photonics. So these lasers are extremely reliable. And how does this help DAMAE, an OCT imaging company? So they probably need a lot more power than most of the intraocular OCT companies, because they are imaging the skin. So they need tens of milliwatts of output power. And as you know, the Super K is a very broadband source, and it emits between 400 and 2400 nanometers. And most of the OCT applications don't require that much light. So what we can do is actually, we can tailor the light output to the required bandwidth for DAMAE, which is 600 to 900 nanometers. And we can also deliver it through a single mode fiber with an FC-APC connectorization at the end, so that DAMAE can just plug it into this old fiber OCT setup without worrying about to handle the extra infrared light that comes with the source. And it is also a passively cooled system. It doesn't have any fans, or it doesn't need any water cooling or anything. So it can be really easily integrated into the portable trolley that DAMAE has in their OCT system. And the size-wise, it's just about the size of an A4 in footprint. And it has all the industrial standards for connectivity, such as USB, RS-232, and Ethernet, which I think DAMAE uses Ethernet there. So all in all, a very compact and rugged industrial source suitable for volume production for a biomedical imaging company like DAMAE. That's what the Super K Evo series is. Yeah. And this is how traditionally we have actually looked at account development at NKTP, because the technical sales team of NKTP, they are all experts in optics and lasers, and mostly in applications as such. Most of our sales guys has PhDs, and they really know their stuff. Yeah. So in most cases, the initial discussion and the qualification with the customer opportunity is done by our sales guys. And once the opportunity is qualified, they bring it back to the product management and the applications management group. And there, myself and my boss, Jesper Toft Olsen, sit, and we make sure that the customers get the right solution at the right price. And we also have a dedicated integration team who make sure that the customer is actually using the Super K laser in the best possible way. Because most customers don't need all that bandwidth, don't need all that power. So in most cases, we probably have to filter the light out, to deliver the light properly into the sample and all that. And we are actually quite good experts in that. And we go into a level that we sometimes even go and take a look at the customer's optical design and make sure that they're using this laser in the best possible way. And so once that part is over, then we go into the proof of concepting. So we always maintain the very close contact with our customers, both the technical sales as well as the product line management. And we always provide technical support throughout the development phase. And most of our lasers can actually be adjusted or tweaked on site, so that there's very little downtime when it comes to, when you're talking about a volume production or so. Yeah. So this is the way we have always done business at NKT Photonics, and I think that's also partly the reason which we've been really successful with companies like DAMAE, for example. Yeah. So to conclude, we are at NKT Photonics. We not only deliver lasers, but we actually provide solutions for today's and future's innovators. Thank you for listening, and I'm open to questions now.
Thank you very much, Deepak, for a great presentation. Thank you for keeping it also on time. We really brought DAMAE also to see how they can use your laser and also how they need, what other help from others they need. But before I give the floor to them, I want to ask you the epic question. As the first speaker of our 100 online technology meeting, what can you do for the other 749 EPIC members, and what can they do for you? Share with us a couple of challenges that the companies in EPIC can help you with.
Yeah, sure. SuperK is relatively a young technology. Well, it's 20 years old. We brought our first laser in back in 2002, but still it's a very upcoming technology. And especially if you look into the sphere area these days, there are no proper light sources out there. And when it comes to characterization of any sort of sensors or materials and all that, this is actually the light source to go for. So anybody who wants to have a proper light source with a high spatial coherence and single model characteristics, I think the SuperK is the right way to go.
It is really the beginning of something that is going to boom. It is really, we are at the tip of the iceberg.
Yes, I really believe in that. Yes.
We're going to talk about OCT imaging in a second. We're going to talk about gas sensing. We're going to talk about quantum technologies also. But what is, in your opinion, the low-hanging fruit, the one that we have to push like crazy to get that big portion of the market we are all dreaming with?
Well, for OCT, it's actually quite straightforward. The laser does its job, and it's quite easy to integrate this into an OCT system. And we are at a point that we can actually scale the price down so that it can compete with some of the other technologies, like the SWEP source, for example. Yeah. And when it comes to sphere imaging, for example, material sorting and all that, we know that people are actually developing, or they are actually getting better and better at the sphere sensors, and but they still don't have a proper light source to complement that, and we are actually there to fill in that gap. The same goes for material sorting, for example, and hyperspectral imaging as well.
We're going to talk to many of those integrators over the next 2 hours. But after your presentation, I wanted to go quickly before the first Q&A. I wanted to go quickly to the use case, because this meeting is to find cooperation. So let's go to the first use case. And today we have the honor to have co-opening the show, the R&D engineer Jonas Ogien from DAMAE Medical, a company that we all love because of the amazing work they are doing for OCT imaging of the skin. Jonas, thank you very much for joining the meeting. Thank you also for opening the show after the NKT presentation. We want to see how you use that laser, but also we want to see how the others can help you being even greater than you already are. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Jose. It's always a pleasure to be here. I'll be sharing my screen now. And okay, can you see my screen now?
Let me see, it's coming. Yes, I can see it.
Okay, so first, let me also thank Deepak, because it was a very, very good introduction to Supercontinuum and OCT. So now let me talk to you a little about DAMAE and how we use white light source and white light lasers. So DAMAE Medical, we are a French startup company. We were founded in 2014. We're now 7 years old. We're based in Paris, and we develop medical device on technology called LCOCT to improve skin cancer management. A few numbers just so you know how the stage of the company now. We're a team of 20 persons. We have about 50 scientific publications, both technical and clinical. 6 patent families. We have had 3 CE mark obtained for 3 different devices, the latest being from this summer, the last summer 2020. We have now 25 devices installed all over the world, and we have a production capacity of 100 devices a year, roughly. So now I just want to introduce the technology of LCOCT, which our devices are based on, and to explain where the broadband and white source laser intervene. So LCOCT stands for line field confocal optical coherence tomography, and it's a combination of time domain optical coherence tomography and confocal microscopy. And there is 5 key points to understand this technology. The first one is obviously the use of the broadband laser, and this will give us the high axial resolution, and this is very common. This is the basis for the OCT concept. Then we use high aperture microscope objectives, which give us the high lateral resolution, and this is the basis for confocal microscopy. Then we use a line illumination and detection, and this is to have both a confocal filtering and a parallelization for fast acquisition as compared to a point scanning devices. And then we have 2 types of scanning, which are vertical scanning to obtain vertical slice imaging, and lateral scanning for horizontal or en face imaging. And from vertical and lateral scanning, we can also do 3-dimensional imaging. So let me talk to you a little about the first of the key points. And Deepak already introduced it very well. So the idea of, well, the OCT concept is based on this broadband laser, and the idea that with supercontinuum laser, you get the broadest spectrum you can dream of. And for OCT, we only need a portion of this spectrum, which is shown in blue here. And this is the tailored spectrum Deepak was referring to. And this tailored spectrum is going to give us a very high axial resolution of about 1.1 micron, which is about 1/10 of a cell, of the skin cell. And this is going to give us this very high cellular resolution in the skin. And at first, we were using the NKT Photonics Super K EX-ER4, which was this really big laser, and we had to couple it using a collimator to put it in the system. And I will show you the first prototype ever developed by DAMAE, which is this one on the left. And so this prototype was like this very big microscope, and we could use it. This was installed in the hospital. This is Professor Jean-Luc Perrault, with whom we have been working since the beginning of the company. And you see this big box here. This was the whole laser was in there. And this was not very easy to handle, but it led to very, very nice images that you can see here. And so this is a typical image of healthy skin, where you can see all those little, all the layers of the skin, and these little spots that are the keratinocyte cells. So those are really, this is the cellular resolution I was talking about. You can see the junction between the epidermis, which is the upper side, and the dermis, which is the lower side, and which within the dermis, you can see some fibers, which appears bright, and some blood vessels, which appears dark. So this is a much higher resolution than conventional OCT, if you're familiar with this technology. So this was our first prototype from 2016, already based on an NKT laser. And as Deepak introduced, then we switched to a Super K Evo laser, and this led to this new device, which is our commercial device we are now selling, which is called the DeepLive. And as you can see, this time it's a handheld probe that the practitioner can use directly on the skin. And the fact to have a much industrial laser, much easier to integrate, this led to the possibility to have a cart that the practitioner can just display very easily. So here is just a picture to show you how the device DeepLive is being used. This is a dermatologist office, and you can see how he's using it very easily on a patient. So let me end with showing you a little of the nice pictures and the nice images we can obtain using this probe. All those images have been obtained in vivo directly on the patients. So this is healthy skin. And I think the most interesting picture is the one on the right, where you can see the 3-dimensional cellular resolution, which I think the DeepLive device is one of the only devices in the world that can give you such high resolution in 3D. And so this is healthy skin. And now let me just show you some clinical images so you can really see the difference. So this is a basal cell carcinoma, which is the most common type of skin cancer. And you can, even if you're not trained to medicine, you can obviously see much of a difference as compared to healthy skin. And again, I think the 3-dimensional images are particularly interesting, and I'll also show you both the vertical and horizontal slice imaging. And this is now the melanoma, which is the deadliest form of skin cancer. And also using this device, you can really see the difference here and see some very abnormal cells that appear very bright. And this type of images can really help to detect very early the melanoma at a very early stage, which is a very important thing. So let me just end up with talking a little about our future challenges. So I just listed 3 of them. One is the system miniaturization, to go even beyond this handheld probe, to go to an even smaller device, and also an even smaller central unit integrating the laser. So I'm talking about laser optics, camera scanning systems, and then also improve the acquisition speed. This could include, for example, faster line scan cameras or scanning systems. And eventually, we're also working on coupling new modalities to improve the diagnostic accuracy. And for example, we are currently working on coupling LCOCT with confocal Raman macrospectroscopy. And that will be all for this short introduction on what we do at DAMAE and how we use white light lasers. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Jonas. Thanks a lot for this really nice introduction to the technology, and also to Deepak before to just make the intro to this fantastic success story. So it's really nice that you are both here, and that you also, Jonas, show the wish list, because now, you know, it's after having the beginning of November is usually the time really to ask for a Christmas list, and you put it there very, very clearly. So we will speak a bit later also about miniaturization, but maybe we can talk a bit about the 3rd point. So basically, of the 3 points that you mentioned, the first 2 are a bit more for your integrator part, but the 3rd one is more like on a collaborator level, right? You would like to integrate your technology together with another integrator. Maybe you can specify a bit there what you think about integrating also Raman microscopy together. So what are the challenges there? And then we go to the questions, because here, see the hands, the virtual hands, there are other messages, so I don't want to steal the time, but maybe if you can a bit tell about this 3rd point, a couple of words more.
Yeah, so about this 3rd point, so as you mentioned, this is also on the collaborator side, I would say. So the way we see it is that we don't necessarily want to at DAMAE commercialize a system that would do both confocal Raman microspectroscopy and LCOCT, because it's, you know, we are focused on our system, but it's more on the research side. So we got some research projects going on. We have designed our own Raman system in-house at DAMAE. So this is really something we work on our side, and we got some communications coming at Photonics West, if you guys
yes.
will be there also.
We will.
You will be there. So yeah, so be sure to be here. So someone from DAMAE, a PhD student working part at DAMAE, will be presenting her work related to what we've done in-house. And we've also ongoing project. I don't really want to talk too much right now, but as soon as we have the first results, I'll be sure to let you know, and we'll communicate on that. But maybe I can just say the idea will get 2 ways to consider the coupling, and the idea is either we can have the 2 devices, so one confocal Raman microspectrometer and one LCOCT, and we go from one to the other. So this is more for ex vivo imaging, and the other is obviously to have a whole just a one device with both the 2 technologies. So these are the 2 axes we are working on.
Very nice. Yes, then I guess we will hear more soon, because you have something already in place. Very good. Thanks a lot, Jonas. Now let's move to the questions of the audience, because I see there is a lot going on. So we start with Ole, I would say, for NORBLIS. Thank you for raising your hand. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Jonas. Very impressive pictures as usual. Really very nice. Could I ask a question? How are you going towards increasing the depth, penetration? Because if you talk to doctors and they are in skin cancer, the first thing they say, we want 5 millimeters to detect the back of the skin cancer. Do you see any way of going there?
So to answer this question, we are oriented towards diagnostics, not necessarily the surgical aspect, even though they are both obviously correlated. But in terms of penetration, the idea is that, well, the first thing is, from an optical point of view, you cannot have everything. And obviously, if you've got a cellular resolution and we got a 1 millimeter field of view, you won't have a 1 per 5 millimeters, because I think it does not make much sense. But I think that if I understood correctly, the thing you really want to see is the junction between the epidermis and dermis. And this was like our target. It was like, we really need to have the cellular resolution at the level of the junction, because this is where a lot of things are going on. This is, for example, here where you are going to be able to tell whether basal cell carcinoma is infiltrating or superficial. This is a huge difference in terms of treatments. And this is something that even if you use, for example, a standard OCT device that will have a much, even not that much longer penetration, but maybe a bit longer penetration, but you won't be able to have the resolution to tell whether it's superficial or infiltrative. It's actually, you don't have the full picture, I would say. And you can have it having the cellular resolution with only 0.5 millimeter penetration. This is just an example, but most of the time, this is not the huge problem, I would say, relative to the technologies. This is not the thing that comes up so much, even though sometimes it comes up, but we could think of coupling with for example ultrasound or this type of technology to have the full picture also in depth. This is obviously something interesting.
I could just 10 seconds another question, because we could challenge some of the other companies here who are in lasers. What about drilling holes in your skull and imaging through the holes that you drill? You use lasers to drill holes to administer drugs to your skin. Is that something? Maybe some of the other lasers manufacturers could comment on that.
Yeah. So I was not sure this was a question for me.
Will that be something that you could consider? I don't know whether other companies in that field, who are here.
There are here some. If someone wants to take the challenge and answer, you're very welcome. You have the camera on also, so okay, I'm looking at you. If you want to say something, of course, you're free to do. Otherwise, we can also keep it there yeah, they're all smiling, laughing. But if you don't answer now, we can keep it in the drawer for later. But because now we can maybe ask Amir from CSEM. He has also the hands raised. Thank you, Ole, by the way, for the questions. You stay in the circle anyway.
Yeah, thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, Jonas, actually, thank you so much for a great presentation. And I have to start with saying this is kind of a shame. I didn't know about your technology a little bit earlier. We were putting a proposal just 2 weeks ago, and I think if I knew it, your application would be fit perfectly to the proposal we're putting together. Nonetheless, actually, I wanted to talk. Especially, I like the fact that you're want to go to the miniaturization aspects, and we are working on actually this tunable lasers and supercontinuum sources at near infrared. But and actually, it's a peak base, so it's sort of miniaturized. But can you sort of a little bit disclose sort of the power levels that you're shooting? And maybe also a little bit of a short comparison, if you considering also scanner lasers rather than supercontinuum source, because each has their own pros and the cons, especially fast scanners like we can do nanosecond switching. Would that be interesting for you if it's a laser, not the supercontinuum source? Maybe.
Yeah, so about the power, so what we are shooting at the skin is about 5 milliwatts at the level of the skin. But in fact, there's also losses in the optical systems before reaching the skin. So I think the EVO laser we're using now, it shoots about 50 to 80 milliwatts, I think, roughly. So we've got this about 10 factor before reaching the skin, and I would say this is more than enough. So in most situations, this 5 milliwatts is enough. If we go to faster systems, but this is more for the future, maybe we will need some a bit powerful, because I think in terms of security limits, we don't have any problems. We can shoot a lot more than that. And if we go faster, then this means faster means also shorter integration time for our sensor. And so potentially we will need more power, but this is not an issue as of today, I would say.
Scanner versus supercontinuum source.
Yeah, so I'm not exact. So I'm not a laser person. There's a disclosure first. I'm more the optical design part. So can you just, when talking about scanning laser, are you talking about the swept source, or is it something else? So okay, so swept source is not really an option for us, because we do the time domain OCT. So we really need from just as a basis for our technology is based on a broadband spectrum. It's not compatible with scanning. Well, at least this is not the way we do it today. And it is not, we're not going to switch to sweep source OCT, which is, I think, is just another technology. We're not based on this one. So yeah, we are really sticking with the broadband sources.
Got it. And then the last thing is like, when you're talking about this miniaturization, you want to put the lasers into the gun, right? That's
no, not really. So the way when I'm talking about smaller lasers, this is more to have a smaller unit on the cart, I would say. But I think we will stick with the fiber laser. So obviously, having the source directly in the handheld probe is something interesting. But I think the way we consider it today, and considering the technology we're using, it's more we were more with the idea of staying with a fiber laser, and the idea of a smaller laser would just to have a smaller unit on the card. This is what I was talking about. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. So now maybe we can go back to Deepak, because maybe he can comment himself about the power in the source. I would say it's fair. And then we can ask you also a question. So Deepak first. So Jonas already said it's enough for them, but do you think there is some perspective of going up in power? Do you see some applications, a part of OCT, where you aim at a bit pushing the source, or what is the plan of NKT now?
But we don't really have to push the source. The power is there, actually. It's a very powerful lasers, and we do have other models that can deliver probably 5 times as much power as this one. So technologically speaking, this is not a limitation for us, especially in the near infrared area. This is not at all a problem. Yeah.
Very good. Then it's of course you have different products. So now we are talking specifically about what you deliver to them. I understand. Yeah. Sure. Then we go back to the first question that was actually in the chat that generated a bit of discussion from Ahmad from Optiway Systems. So Ahmad, if you want, you can speak up and ask your original questions to Deepak.
Yes, the question is actually related to the software simulation. So usually it's advantageous to have a simulation tool where you wanted to use for your design and to check the parameters and make sure that you were able to get what you need in terms of, let's say, power, in terms of fiber length, and whatever the parameters you wanted to make an optimal design, either for the supercontinuum or even for the fiber lasers, like with the different technologies possible. So I'm just checking is like when you build your lasers and supercontinuum, do you use simulation tools basically, or you just only try and error sometimes with the experience of the R&D team?
Yeah, I'm actually quite sure that our fiber scientists down there who's developing these nonlinear fibers use some sort of simulation tools. I'm not sure if they use a proprietary tool, for example, from OptiWave or NKT Photonics or anything, but I guess it's more of a Python-based systems that they use. Okay. With that being said, I mean, most of the components in this chain, except the nonlinear fiber, is actually pretty generic. You know, it's actually just an infrared laser, picosecond mode lock laser, which is power amplified through different booster levels. And we've been doing this for the last 20 years. So we have a very good understanding of, what are the variables in it. And we at this point, we are not actually simulating the rest of the system, but it's basically the nonlinear fiber, which acts as a as a center where the supercontinuum is generated, is being simulated, and I'm sure that people are doing that. But again, it's down to the R&D guys who who are doing that, and not the product management.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Very
and I guess
good.
that answers RP Photonics question as well here, because I can see
I guess the topic was the same.
It's
so
very similar topic. Yeah.
If Rudiger want to add anything, otherwise that's a bit, I guess, the focus on both the questions. Yeah.
Sure.
And yes, so now it would be time for Kevin. Yeah, Exalos. Maybe, we talk about it. We put the elephant in the room. Let's talk with the swept lasers experts, right, Kevin?
Thanks. Hello. Yes, this is Kevin. Thank you. I have a question for Deepak. Can you explain how you connect your photonic crystal fiber, which I assume is what you're using to generate the supercontinuum, to the single mode fiber?
Oh, yes, we have very good engineers who can splice it.
Okay, so you're doing direct splicing.
Yes, okay. Yes. I mean, most of our lasers, when they're collimated, the PCF fiber goes all the way down to the end of the collimating lens. But when you have to tailor the spectrum, for example, in the case of DAMAE, we have to splice it with a standard single mode fiber so that we connectorize it. Okay. With an FCAPC. Yeah.
And then do you put a direct in terms of filtering the spectrum, you use a separate filter, or you use a single mode fiber to do the job? It's a single
mode fiber that does the job pretty well.
Okay.
So it's only the core modes that are coming out, and the rest goes into the cladding.
Okay, and then after that, you coil the fiber to get rid of the unwanted spectrum, or how long do you need a single mode fiber to be?
It doesn't need to be that long, actually, less than a meter, probably 1.5 meters. That's what we have experienced.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Cheers.
Thanks a lot. So now this story is becoming close to the end. If there are no other questions for NKT and DAMAE. Sure, are you sure? Because if it's not the case, we thank, of course, very much both of you. So NKT Photonics and DAMAE being here. They will also be maybe here a bit later. So let's see if you have some last minute questions. But now it would be nice really to introduce another success story. So we have here Ole Bang for NORBLIS, that was kindly introduced from Nair, our EPIC member as well. So it would be nice to give the floor to Ole. Thank you. And then we maybe hear also from your collaborators how they helped you actually. The floor is Ole's.
Okay, thank you. Well, this is actually a little presentation of two Danish companies, NORBLIS and NLIR, and our collaboration within making mid-IR OCT systems. So I promised to give a little bit of info from the NLIR and Peter Tipsov also. So focusing on NORBLIS, we are 4 in the management team, we're also founders. We were a little company founded back in 2018. So I'm this acting CEO. Hopefully I'll be replaced by somebody else at some point. Christian Petersen is heading our supercontinuum sources, Christos Marcus, our fiber fabrication, and Nils Israelsen, our OCT development. So we are right now 6 employees, so a very small company. We are backed and we were established by a very strong group from the Technical University of Denmark. Our mid-IR OCT technology is patented, and we make in-house, so we fabricate in-house our own photonic, our own Charcot fibers and our own supercontinuum sources. So if we focus on where we are right now, because we are rather young and this requires a lot of high-tech facilities. We are renting into Technical University of Denmark, where we have access to 7 clean room labs. So we have 2 draw towers for polymer and glass fiber fabrication. We have chemistry labs for making glasses and polymers, and we have freeform extrusion labs and supercontinuum labs. So it's all very nice in a new building with clean room zones. And to sort of illustrate what is how strong the background group, you can say, at our university is, then they can make such 4 supercontinuum sources that you can see here. You note the dotted line here. This is the equivalent brightness of the synchrotron. And so I'm plotting brightness, and we can actually, or the university can make these 4 sources using, for example, hollow core fibers to go down to the UV below 200 nanometers, and using chalcogenide fibers in the other end to go past 10 microns. And NORBLIS is a spin out, and we are focusing on the 2 last ones. You can see the Z-band spectrum out here to 4 micron. That is currently sitting, as you will see, in our OCT systems. So we make them in-house. And then the blue curve that you can see here, that is a standalone product. It is also being developed in future versions of OCT systems, but it's also a standalone product that you can buy. And typically our repetition rate is from 1 to 3 megahertz. We have an average power about 50 milliwatts and a bandwidth 2 to 10 microns. But if we focus on the OCT, well, then it's a very simple OCT system. This is spectral domain. So we use, again, a supercontinuum source, and then it's a free space microson interferometer that we use. So free space, and since the spectrum domain, we don't have a scanning mirror, we have a fixed mirror here, and then we scan with the Galvanov scanner the sample, okay? And then we have a detector, and which is from NLIR. And this is really one of the key components. Spectral domain means also that you are very fast, but we are even faster due to the detector from NLIR. If I look inside it, what you have there is not just a standard spectrometer. It has first an up conversion module that takes the mid-IR light and converts it down to around 800 nanometers. And then you are just detecting it with a standard CMOS detector. And I've tried to illustrate it here. So in red, you have the spectrum out of the supercontinuum source. And you can see here we use a part of the spectrum from 3.5 to 5, but today, as you will see, we can actually use 2 to 5 micron also. And then we up convert that down to the blue spectrum that you can see, and it's centered around 850 nanometers. And this is really where we do our detection. And that allows us to be very fast. Typically in the mid-IR, you all know about the slow detectors that you have there, right? So, but this allows us to be quite fast. So if in terms of specs, we operate at a source repetition rate about 1 megahertz. We have an actual resolution, which is actually for mid-IR purposes very, very good, of 5.8 micron. That's because we have this huge spectral bandwidth of more than 2 microns. We operate at a line rate of 3 kilohertz in our early versions here. That means that we can acquire whole B scans or 1,000 A scans in 0.3 seconds. Okay. And so why operate in the mid-IR actually in terms of OCT? Well, this is because the scattering through a sample decreases with the wavelength. Right, so this is a very well-known thing. So that means that as long as we have samples that don't have water in it, we can penetrate much deeper. So here we have chosen to look into ceramics. We have 3 layers of ceramics here: zirconia, alumina, and 2 layers of alumina. And in the middle part, you can see here, we have carved out a little structure. Now, such ceramic samples are very, very highly scattering. So if I take our best near-IR OCT system operating at 1.3, typical for skin, I've shown you a B scan here, and you can see you can almost not see anything. So you almost can see a surface here, and then there's something below. If I take our 4 micron system, you can see very clear signatures, and they are so clear that we can do nice volume scans of everything down through the sample. So you can see here to the left, we are shining from the top, and you can see we go through the zirconia, and we go down, we can actually see the structure, and the zirconia is highly scattering. You can see a lot of points here. Can you see that? So there's a lot of defects actually in the zirconia, and different companies are very interested in characterizing such defects. I can turn around and shine from the other side. The alumina don't have all those defects, so it's more homogeneous, and that means we can penetrate even deeper. So here you can see, we can really see the structure that we have. So we are going actually through almost 700 micron alumina and looking at that structure. And just to sort of make you a little bit nervous, we can also take your credit card. It's a very nice example actually. So I'm scanning along the red line here. And so you can see there's a microchip here, and it's protected by laminated polymer and some epoxy. And of course, you have the microchip with all the wiring. So again, in the center here, you can see a near-IR OCT scan, and you can see absolutely nothing. But if we take our 4 micron system, we can actually go in here, look at the top right corner here. In a volume scan, you can even see the bonding wires and the contact circuitry inside your credit card. So this just really highlights how much we can penetrate into a highly scattering samples. Now, if we sort of summarize our applications in OCT, so this is our real target. So even though we make sources and we make fibers, this is really for ourselves. for our mid-IR OCT system. Our focus right now is on coatings and paints and on ceramics that you just saw. And coatings and paints, we have some good, strong companies in Denmark. Hempel makes coatings, for example. We have a lot of companies, as you know, in wind turbine blades. So our system can actually, the nice thing about it is that it's OCT, so it's non-contact. And in these fields, people are used to ultrasound, which is contact, right? So we can actually go out and we can actually image through the surface and look into multiple layers without touching it. And we can even look at how the paint is drying without touching it. So this is really very nice. Here you can see our system out in a shipyard, measuring on a boat. We have a lot of, so we have just handed in a lot of applications, EU applications, as you know, and we are going into collaboration with some major companies there that I cannot disclose, but to not just monitor on-site wind turbine blades and the whole wind turbines, but also in production. And these are really big wings, right? You know, they are more than 80 meters long. That means you really here need the speed to be able to scan a blade in a reasonable amount of time. Okay, but if you look, for example, to the right here, we have scanned a wing here on site. And what you can see, we can actually look through the coating and we can see delamination. And this is something that's very interesting because it leads to a denaturation of the or decay of the robustness. Okay, and even if you, for example, we can go underneath and see, as you can see here, bubbles and more of them. And so this is really, and we can do that with a high resolution, not like ultrasound, which can penetrate deep, but with a high resolution. And this is highly interesting for companies in the field. And here I'm just taking a very fresh example from last week. On the ceramics. So this is additive manufacturing. So this is actually a very nice new technology where you add layers to the ceramic, many layers, and you build it up. And that of course means that you need to control it during manufacturing. So you need to control that the layers are homogeneous and how many they are and how thick you are going and everything. And here we can really go in and look through 1 millimeter of ceramics and see, as you can see here to the left, about 20 layers. Okay. But I promise also to say a little bit about the detector, and the detector here is really key to the speed that we can have, and which is key that we can go into applications where we need to do scanning of big areas. And so I got these 2 slides from Peter Tytrup, CEO of NLIR, and they really now hit the limit of, not hit the limit, but they have broken their own record in terms of speed, and they are now marketing, Peter may correct me if I'm wrong, but they are now marketing the 130 kilohertz source that covers spectrometer that covers 2 to 5 microns. They also have sources that go much higher, of course, but this is the one that we are using in our, NORBLIS is using in our, will be using in our OCT system right now. And just to give an example here of what you can do with such a fast mid-IR spectrometer. So to the left, what you see is actually that what Peter is trying to here, or NLI is trying to do here, is to just do pulse-to-pulse measurement of a mid-IR supercontinuum source operating at 40 kilohertz. And since they are operating at 80 kilohertz, you can actually, what should be done visible here is that you can see every pulse, and actually in between you have an empty space, right? And this is what you see. So to the left, you see and monitoring over 12 milliseconds. And then to the right, we zoom in and you can clearly see here, you see the spectrum and then there's no pulse and you see the spectrum again. And if I now take 6 or 10 consecutive samples and plot on top of each other, you can see it's quite noisy, but Peter promised me, and that's certainly also so, they have done a lot of investigations to prove this, that all this noise is actually coming from the source. And to the right, just a final example, what NLI did here was to monitor the ramping up in current of a 3.3 micron mid-IR laser. And what you can see is this is actually on the micro scale. You can see that it's actually as short. Can you see? Notice a tiny, where's my mouse here? A tiny shift in the wavelength. So it's not a constant wavelength. It's actually bending that's going towards shorter, longer wavelength. Can you see this? Oh. Let me just go up. And so you can highlight it. If I now take these 3 slices, and you can now see, go down and see the ramping up here, low current, high and higher current, and note how the peak goes towards the shift in wavelength. So Peter, did I miss anything about your detector, or otherwise I think I'm about done now.
Thank you for that, Owen.
Okay.
And thank you for that, Ole and Peter. Wow, Danish power here. It is great how Denmark is strong on this technology. Ole, this is your first ever EPIC event, so welcome to the family. We want to help you. You are in the very beginning and industry really is looking at you. How can we help you? What is your preferred future for NORBLIS and which EPIC members can help you get there faster?
Oh, we have, so this is mid-IR. You noticed that it was free space, whereas you saw it was a nice fiber system that you had in the near-IR. So fibers. I want fibers. We are currently have to buy from the US and they are down. This is why we are going to make our own fibers, but it would be very nice with Charcotinite step index fibers and C-blend fibers. I know we have some very good manufacturers of C-blend fibers here in the community in France, but also Charcotinite step index fibers. That would be very nice to get. I don't know, maybe I can ask Leproux also if they have a coupler, a C-blend coupler. That would be very nice also.
Samuel, yeah, you have to comment. Samuel Flupoleng is the CEO of LVF, Leproux.
Yeah, general manager, actually.
Sorry.
Hello. Yes, we are talking about the topic of components. We understand that the market really miss some key components such as couplers, combiners, and things like that. I should say that there are several companies interested in this kind of development. Leproux by our own, but we support some smaller companies that would like to make business with it. And if they manage to do that, we will let them make a good business, because we understand that it's really key to have good components. And as we really want to create an ecosystem. You talked about C-band, but yes, other bands. So we will really need to develop some components that require some specific development. On that Leproux, our job is mainly about fibers. Of course, we work on fiber components, but there is room for many developments and for many companies.
Before you go, Samuel, Kevin from Exalos asked a question before saying, how did you actually manage to connect a PCF and SMF? And then the answer from NKT was, we have very good technicians who can splice it. Is there a standard connector already to connect these two fibers? Is there anything that is needed in your work with Exalos as the main fiber supplier for LEUKOS? Samuel, how you come up with that challenge before?
First, in mid-infrared, it depends, because if it's about generating supercontinuum up to 4 or 5 microns, step index fiber is enough, so there is no problem. However, if it's about generating at much higher wavelengths, beyond 9 or even 10 microns, it's about other components on the like Ole said, or several manufacturers of step index or PCF. We don't know what is the best actually, because each technology, like everywhere, has its own advantage, both pros and cons. So in terms of fiber integration, yes, it's a nightmare, especially when you want to couple. But unfortunately, I'm not able to disclose because it's about a 2.5 year development.
So
we manage.
What I do want is more and more people to connect with you, not to tell me your secrets, but just to tell me that you know how to do it. Kevin, he knows how to do it.
I can give an information. There is not one single way to do that. There are several ways. Each has its. It's an engineering problem. It's not a scientific problem. So,
to a person that has been to the laboratory of LEUKOS, I can tell Samuel that you are doing it, and I would like more people to understand that particular challenge. I will go back to Samuel later because he's giving a presentation. And before that, I want to go to Neuchâtel. I want to go to SUS MicroOptics. I want to ask Wilfred Null, what's on your mind?
Yeah, I was very impressed by how you can go through scattering media. So this has been a long topic actually in how to do imaging through scattering media. So by either reconstructing the image, but you of course chose an easier way by just using a longer wavelengths. So in these OCT ideas are applied a lot now to LiDAR, so FMCW, for example. And the question is for me, if your technology could also be applied to LiDAR, then to go through other scattering media like rain or snow or fog or something, would that be an option, even if it's low resolution, but it might still be seen more than any of the existing LiDAR systems, who work at the near infrared or even shorter wavelengths?
Yes, I can say no. It's not an option because it's
not an option.
It doesn't work for water. If water has an enormous loss at the mid-IR wavelength, that's why I'm focusing on non-bio things here.
I see.
So unfortunately, not. It would be nice.
Thank you very much. Sorry.
And now we make the round because I want to go back to Ole, because for your presentation, you said to make holes in the skull for drug delivery. And I know Toptica has a strong work on that. And I actually would like to welcome to this debate the person that we have from Toptica today, Nariman Kasori. Nariman, thank you very much for joining the meeting. Lots of opportunities so far, but I would like to ask you, how would you do drug delivery with lasers?
Thank you very much, Jose, for the introduction. I would not use any supercontinuum light source at this state. I would use a erbium YAG laser or a CO2 laser in order to create microtunnels in the skin in order to overcome the skin barrier, in order also to apply the medicine or the medication and to have a good effect. Of course, if you have an idea to overcome the skin barrier with a supercontinuum light, that would be interesting for me as well. But I would use a CO2 or erbium YAG laser at this point.
Yes, if I may comment on that, so the supercontinuum is not to drill the hole. The supercontinuum is, so we have a little vision. We've got a big project here on where we use the supercontinuum to image through the hole. So what you need is a wavelength for the drilling also. So the drilling is a completely different thing, and you need to be in the regime, in my opinion, people may correct me, where you have high loss of the water, because then you burn things. So there's no fluid left. But it was just because I work with Bispebjerg Hospital, and they use laser drilling to administer drugs and have shown that it's very good. It really increases the effect of drugs if you drill holes in your skin first. They drill many holes in one go through a mask, but we would just drill one hole and then try to image through it. It's just a long-term vision. I would like to do.
Oh wow! No, we want to know more about that project. That looks spectacular. Maybe for the next meeting. But no, Ole, there's another question for you coming from on All Saints Day, coming from the person who runs the Bible of Photonics, RP Photonics. Rudiger, thank you very much for being with us today. What's on your mind?
Hello. I want to comment and ask concerning the issue of noise. Noise in the supercontinuum source can obviously have an important impact on the image quality. I noticed that the noise seems to be relatively substantial of that nanosecond source. And I know that usually a shorter pulse source, a picosecond or even femtosecond, might have substantially lower noise. So I wondered whether you have considered using such a thing, or if not, is it maybe availability, getting enough performance in that spectral region, or is it perhaps simply a cost issue?
Yes, there's many things. We are keeping our mouth shut, but we have here from LEUKOS and from NORBLIS and us, because there's, first of all, we have some patents hanging around from a guy, Islam, from the States. And that means we have to pay tribute to him if we go shorter pulses, if we don't go shorter pulses, or if we use longer pulses. So there is a huge effort in the industry to go to shorter pulses, exactly to avoid having to do with these patents. But it is actually so with supercontinuum, in the way it's used right now, that if you go to shorter pulses, you actually increase the noise. So it's so the longer pulses actually have a tendency to make better noise performance. So you don't want to go too short unless you can make a different fiber and use something called developed by Alexander Haidt in Switzerland, something called optical wave breaking and surface modulation. So it's called an anti-supercontinuum, all normal dispersion supercontinuum. For that, you need a femtosecond laser and a special fiber with normal dispersion. So right now, I guess it's safe to say I can look at the internet. I can see Alpha Enough are also trying to go to make a picosecond 2-micron lasers. And this is actually, Jose, my next thing that I'd like the industry. Could we please have very cheap 1550 and 2-micron pumps with pulse length lower than 100 picoseconds? If I go to the industry in Europe, PicoQuant, Germany, I very much like to buy from them, but they are more expensive than outsourced. And it would be very nice if we could have some decrease the price of these pumps to where the Chinese are right now. I don't know whether that answered your question, Rüdiger, but
I think you gave a very, very good answer, Ole, and I had a couple of people smiling like a winner is Nariman from Toptica, by the way. But we also have another question here in the room coming again from the general manager of LBF, Samuel Polan. What's on your mind?
No, it was just a comment. It was about a laser relevant for skin. And there are several developments around 2.8 for nanosecond pulsed lasers, for your information. And we could expect the first devices to be commercially available within 3 to 5 years. We are talking about something around 10 watts average power on nanoseconds pulse around several millijoules. We're talking something like that. So, and we know that it can be relevant for skin vaporization, for instance, or for skin treatment, but also for heart tissue processing. That was just a comment.
Thank you very much, Samuel. And Ole wants to contact you offline. I already noticed that. But now, Ole, I want to ask you. You work with NLIR. Because you wanted to have a very fast data acquisition. After the second presentation, the one from DAMAE Medical, they actually shared with us that particular challenge. They want to go to faster acquisition, faster cameras, faster software. Jonas, I think there is clear room for cooperation here with NLIR, but I would like to ask you again, Jonas, can you specify further that challenge on the data acquisition speed?
Yeah, thank you, Jose. So to come back on the faster aspect, as I was saying, well, what we're using at DAMAE is a line scan camera. This is different from if we're talking about swept source OCT, they would use the photodiodes that they can go at, I don't know, megahertz or really, really fast. For the line scan camera, it's a bit different because we got this camera aspect with pixels that must deliver the data. And we also need one that can be embedded, integrated in the probe. And we cannot use a very huge cables like those cameras that use several camera links cables. So our constraints will be to have either Ethernet or USB cable, I would say, and to go beyond what we use today, which is the fastest is 120 kilohertz line rate. So the idea is if we could go faster than that, we could probably also increase the acquisition speed. But it's a bit more complicated, and it's not only the camera, but it's also the scanning systems that should be faster, because just having the faster camera is not enough to do faster imaging. So we got this kind of a lot of compromises, and it's a kind of a complicated situation. But
when it comes to mid-IR fast detectors, my person to go always is Peter Totro from NLIR. Peter, would you like to comment on this?
Yeah, I can do that. I mean, so our spectrometer is actually a line array spectrometer. It goes from up to 130, 250 can also be done in kilohertz. So, and then what we do is, as Ole talked about, we move the light down to mid-infrared. Down to the near infrared from the mid-infrared. So we use standard silicon, or standard. That's very fast silicon. But so we have line arrays from 2 to 5 micrometers that goes around 200 kilohertz.
And just one question, Peter. So you use a CMOS line scan sensor, right?
Silicon.
Silicon, okay. So they're centered around what, 800 nanometers, 1
700
micron?
to 700 to 900 and something.
Okay, and what's your, maybe I didn't hear it, but what's the line rate of the line scan camera you're using?
We can, right now we sell the 130 kilohertz, but we can also do 250 if needed.
Yeah, okay.
There is obvious room for cooperation here. I like when the epic magic happens. If something happens between the two of you, Francesca and me want just a little bit of a present for Christmas. Let's continue. Let's continue for the next success story today. A couple of years ago at Laser Munich, I saw a demonstrator using photonic integrated circuits and lasers for creating supercontinuum generation. It was between two companies in EPIC, LIGENTEC and Optica. And I was really excited about this. 2 years after, I want to get an update on how that activity is going to use silicon nitride as the nonlinear element for supercontinuum generation. So we ask LIGENTEC today to tell us about the current progress. Technical project manager for that particular activity, Anton Stroganov. Thank you very much for being with us today. Tell us how it's going and also tell us how the EPIC members can help you take it even further. The floor is yours.
Hello, everybody, and thanks for such a nice introduction. Indeed, I will be presenting a slightly different perspective because previously we discussed fibers, and now we will be switching more towards the integrated photonics approach. I hope you can see clearly my presentation slides at the moment. And generally, just to have a common ground and perspective, I'll spend first a minute to briefly remind what we do and what is our position within the ecosystem. So LIGENTEC is a chip manufacturing provider with its rather unique expertise and commercial offering in thick film silicon nitride. And we supply our clients with chips, which later on can go into products, systems, or subsystems. And we try to be integral part of the whole ecosystem, which means that we work on one hand with design and software houses, and on the other hand with packaging experts and system integrators to ensure smooth process throughout the whole development cycle for all of our clients. Now to the next slide. So here we start on the left part. Why should we go integrated? Well, there are quite several benefits of integration. And of course, speaking about the waveguides on a chip, we can think about high level of optical mode confinement, as well as rather high nonlinearity of the materials used, which can lead to short lengths required for supercontinuum generation and allow for broad and coherent spectra of the generated supercontinuum. And speaking about waveguides, we speak about lithographic accuracy, which means very high level of control and reproducibility of the fabricated devices. Of course, as any integrated photonic system, it can combine many functionalities on a chip, and you can build even complicated system fully on a single chip. And of course, it's about easy scalable fabrication process. But nonetheless, I believe it's very important to outline that there are still several drawbacks or difficulties which are not yet fully solved by the industry, and they are mainly laying in the part of the packaging and system assembly. And it's a problem not only within the domain of supercontinuum or white lasers, but it's a industry-wide complication. And the second part, it's about the cost benefits, because we always saying that the cost will significantly go down with the volumes, but we should remember that for low volume prototyping, it can be not yet the case. Then go into the current state. Generally, the supercontinuum on chip was demonstrated within a very wide range of wavelengths. And here I speak about pump wavelengths and also about the output spectra. So from visible to mid-infrared, and also in a variety of applications such as OCT, spectroscopy, microscopy, sensing, lasers, and frequency comps. So even the domains which require really broad, coherent, and more than octave spanning supercontinuum. And go into the right part of the slides, why silicon nitride can be a beneficial choice for some of these applications. Well, in a way, it holds the same benefits as silicon photonics. Especially here, I believe it's important to remember that it is compatible with CMOS processes and CMOS equipment infrastructure, but also it has additional beneficial features such as much wider transparency range, higher power handling capability with no 2-photon absorption, intrinsically higher thermal stability and lower loss. And the SiC film silicon nitride platform, which is a distinguished feature of LIGENTEC, can allow much better confinement. So you can see on the image that the mode is very well confined inside the waveguide, even for telecom wavelength range, which leads to even lower loss, lower phase errors, smaller footprint of the system. And what is especially important within today's discussion, it allows dispersion engineering and also an easy access to nonlinear applications. Now I would like to showcase a couple of examples from the projects that we had with a public dissemination level. So again, I start on the left, and generally I believe these projects are quite interesting, at least for me personally, because they very well showcase how the integrated circuits can be implemented as a part of larger system for more sophisticated applications. So you can see on the left that the goal of the project was to develop a packaged supercontinuum source. You can see the very early prototype on the image. And of course, the final device was packaged in a much more compact and standardized package. But I believe this image reveals quite well how it looks like inside. And within the scope of the project, we wanted to assess the stability of operation for such kind of packages. And the test was performed that supercontinuum generation was run continuously for more than 2,000 hours. And we observed no degradation and no problems with the performance, which is quite good. And to give you another reference for another project, we had with a large US observatory, where they used our chips to generate supercontinuum as a part of their system. And the system works already for more than 3 years without any complications. And I believe it's really a great example and showcase. But going back a bit, within the scope of the same project, it was demonstrated that such kind of package can be used in a system to generate CO3 pulse trains, where the source is a fiber laser, then supercontinuum is generated on chip, and different frequency generation processes used to generate CO3 pulse trains. And important part that within the project, it was concluded that potentially there is an opportunity to put everything except for the source at the moment on a single chip, which is a great thing to have for miniaturization. Going to the next project on the right-hand side, here the waveguides were specially designed to provide not only supercontinuum generation, but also a second harmonic generation within the same waveguides to allow easily accessible comp self-referencing on the same chip and to stabilize mod-lock lasers. And later on, they were used in a system to generate X-band microwave signals with extremely low phase noise. So you can see that it was minus 142 dBc at 10 kilohertz and minus 175 dBc noise floor, which is exceptional. And again, the peak was used here as an additional add-on module for high-end laser. Now to the last part, the epic part, what we can do for you and what you can do for us. As I mentioned at the very beginning, LIGENTEC aims to be your innovation partner, giving an access to our scalable, versatile, and mature integrated photonics platform. We can fabricate a variety of thicknesses up to 800 nanometers, or even provide multi-layer photonic structures. And moreover, we provide access to additional modules to enhance your functionality of your chip, such as, for example, thermal phase shifters, local gradient removal for sensing and integration applications, and so on. We are proud to be a fast turnaround partner, which means that the lead time can be as short as 2 months, and we give access to our developed process design kits and ready-to-use components to ease the process on your side. Generally, we will be very interested to establish new contacts and connections with all who can benefit from such kind of platform. And especially it will be interesting for us to establish new contacts with packaging experts and potential partners, as I mentioned before, just to be able to face these difficulties and to resolve them jointly. And of course, we are open to a variety of joint projects to explore and demonstrate the benefits of photonic integrated circuits in your particular domain and specific application. With that, I'd like to finish, and I'm very open to any questions and discussions to follow. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Anton, for presenting your experience also in the miniaturization of these sources. Of course, very, very exciting. So thanks a lot for this. And I wanted to ask anyway, Optica Sonariman to comment on your collaboration, but he has even a question for about the other projects. So it's really like makes totally sense to give the floor now maybe to him, right, Nariman?
Thank you. I was asking myself what kind of mode lock laser you used for the second project in order to generate the X-band microwaves.
Yeah, as was mentioned on the slide, the laser system was developed by CICM. So they are also present here today, but probably it's slightly different departments. So it was a solid state laser, highly stabilized, and it's not a commercial off-the-shelf product, but it's rather a custom-made, highly performing laser. At C-band, yes, of course, the operation C-band, and rep rate something in 300 megahertz range.
Very good. So I guess that's the
Thank
answer
you very
to
much.
Yeah, perfect. And Amir from CSCM, and I know probably he's right, but maybe you want to comment on this because it's really nice to have the big family here all together. I mean, why not to giving the floor a bit to comment? We don't hear you, Amir. Yeah.
Okay, can you hear me?
Now, yes.
Wonderful. Yeah, indeed. I mean, actually, it's a different department of CSCM, so I cannot comment on the exact type of lasers they use. But indeed, well, I mean, at CSCM we have quite a large interest in like nonlinear processes. Supercontinuum is on top of them, and we recently actually made a quite nice demonstrations. Actually, the publication is coming out in a few days. At CSCM, we are also so we have close connections obviously to LIGENTEC, but in addition to silicon nitride, we have our lithium niobate on insulator PIC platform, and the advantage of lithium niobate is actually it has both strong Chi3 and Chi2 on the same package. So we recently demonstrated actually supercontinuum self-referencing which actually in a 5 millimeter sort of chip replaces EDFA amplifier, highly nonlinear fiber, PPLNs, all in actually very millimeter sized chip to actually self-reference for this free CEO type of self-referencing. This is quite a very interesting topic, obviously, for us. Several divisions of CSM are involved in this. I'm coming actually from the PIC perspective, but I'm happy to actually also transfer the message to our system and laser teams at CSM, which are not present, but might actually sort of following us from YouTube. I have to check.
Perfect. Then there will be some 30 seconds delay, but we thank them as well for attending. Thanks a lot, Amir. Yeah, now we have a question from Rudiger. Please, Rudiger, you have your hand.
Yes, a question to LIGENTEC. Is it actually common that you sell simple components like just a waveguide or maybe an array of waveguides? Or is it more that you focus on more complex photonic circuits where just a waveguide is one part of many?
So generally, we can address both types of chips. Obviously, as I mentioned, we don't try to focus on product development ourselves. We have some off-the-shelf sample chips, which you can use to just assess the performance. But generally, we prefer to work on a highly customized solutions. Therefore, we tailor fully the solution for your particular need.
I really want this product to reach the market. I really want the silicon nitride becomes a nonlinear element for supercontinuum generation. So if anybody in the industry, the EPIC member can help, please let us know, because we want Optica and LIGENTEC to together make that laser, miniaturized supercontinuum laser in the market for many applications, but for one of them in particular. I have today in the room, I had the honor of having in the room, Professor Roger Graves from TU Delft in the Netherlands. Roger, thank you very much for joining today. You are one of our experts in our network on non-destructive testing and also on SHM, structural health monitoring. Could you tell us a bit how you use supercontinuum lasers and what kind of demands would you have for the industry today?
Okay, so so here in TU Delft, we're working with supercontinuum sources, actually from LEUKOS at the moment for optical coherence tomography. But I have a specific question about spectroscopy for Anton. I see there's maybe some good opportunity for spectroscopy applications, and the interest for me would be to do with materials, materials degradation, So material quality, maybe you can just give a comment on this type of application with this source.
So again, probably I was not fully clear. So we do not do real developments of the product. Of course, this project's related to learning and exploring what are the potential of the materials, what is the quality, and what is possible is of high interest for us. But probably could you rephrase a bit the question of what is of the highest interest for you?
I see the opportunity to have these compact sources with the different wavelength ranges that you mentioned. What was it, from 400 to 3,500 nanometers? I see quite some opportunities for compact spectroscopy devices, and for me the interest would be for materials testing, but I can see there will be quite some applications maybe for environmental monitoring.
Let me give some reference here. The reason why Professor Grace, Roger is here is because he is one of the key people that we have on embedded fiber sensor systems on many different application fields. Yep. And of course, for many of the application fields, although we can use the large lasers, it is very difficult to put them in satellites, as you can understand. It's very difficult to put them in certain areas. So he needs a reduction of the light source for many of his projects. And on this, we really pointed out that photonic integration could be the solution.
Yeah, and also for aircraft applications as well, where lightweight light sources and sensing devices are needed. So yeah, I see quite some opportunities for this compact devices.
You are looking for the right entry point for R&D operations on this technology. I recommend you to contact Roger, because it was really great to have you here today, Roger. Come more often. I want to see you more often. I also want to continue. You use the LEUKOS laser, and that's a great choice. Great choice. So let's all go to Limoges in France. Let's celebrate All Saints Day with the co-founder of CEO of LEUKOS and a very good friend of mine, Guillaume Huss. Guillaume, thank you very much for being with us today. Tell us about LEUKOS and tell us how the members can help you being even greater than you already are. I love this company. I love this company. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Jose, for the introduction. Can you see my screen?
Crystal clear.
Okay. Okay, so thank you very much for the invitation to talk about supercontinuum generation. When we have founded the company more than 15 years ago with Philippe Leproux, it was to build supercontinuum lasers, so it is our heart. So supercontinuum laser, when you inject a monochromatic laser with high peak power in a nonlinear fiber, you have a very wide broadening of the incident spectrum at the output, and you can inject infrared light and obtain a white light at the output with the spectrum you can see on the right. The spectral broadening is due to many nonlinear effects in the fiber. There is an importance of the dispersion regime of the fiber. For example, if you use a pump wavelength less than the zero dispersion wavelengths, you obtain mainly Raman scattering effects, and you have this discrete spectrum on the right. If you pump around the zero dispersion wavelengths, you have a more flat spectrum, and there is a third technique which consists in pumping at two wavelengths, for example at 532 and 1064, with the zero dispersion wavelengths of the fiber in the middle, and you can flatten the spectrum as you can see on the red spectrum on the right. So one key component of this visible supercontinuum spectrum is the photonic crystal fiber. The first PCF was drawn by Professor Russell at the University of Bath in 1996. In Limoges, we have drawn some PCF from 1998 at the lab IRCOM, and you can see the drawing tower on the right. Of course, the first fiber was the one here. You can see that the first structure was not very beautiful, but during the years, the lab has performed very good structure, and the first experiment of supercontinuum have started in 2001 with some good PCF. To our knowledge, the first visible supercontinuum generation in a PCF has been done by Ranka in the 2000s. He has used a femtosecond at 800 nanometer injected in a PCF, and he has obtained a spectrum covering 400 to 1.6 micron in the infrared. Just some word about the PCF fabrication. So this is the stack and row process. First, you use a tube with a quite big diameter, and inside you will put some capillaries. Then you obtain a first preform, and then you can draw a first microstructured cane with some millimeter in diameter. Then for the secondary preform, you put this cane in another tube, and you obtain the final microstructured fibers with typical 125 micron in diameter. On the right, you can see the drawing tower of IRCOM, the first drawing tower we have in the 1998. So what is very interesting for a supercontinuum laser? This is the properties. Many times we say that a white laser is combining the properties of a lamp because of the spectral burning and the laser. For example, the fact that the laser is spatially coherent. You have an example of several of the white mode after filters for several wavelengths, and you can see that all the wavelengths are emitted on the fundamental mode of the fiber, of the photonic crystal fiber. You can obtain very high power spectral densities with this kind of laser. And also this is a fiber laser. That means that this is very useful for many applications. And you can cover today wavelengths from UV to mid-IR more than 10 microns. Regarding this mid-IR supercontinuum laser, of course, you are not using anymore the silica material for the fiber, but you have to use fluoride fibers like Ziblan, indium, and also chalcogenide. We have collaborated with the well-known company in France, Leproux, which is inventor of the fluoride glasses, more than 40 years. Of course, Samuel could say some words about these fibers after my talk. Here, this is the process to fabricate fluoride fibers. So they start with very high purity raw products, which is a high know-how at Leproux. And by the running tube process, they draw a fiber with very good parameters and especially low losses, which is very important for our supercontinuum lasers. With this collaboration, we have introduced two mid-infrared supercontinuum lasers, one at 4 micron using Ziblan fibers, the other close to 5 micron at maximum wavelengths with indium fibers. These lasers have very long lifetime, more than 20,000 hours for these two lasers. Then we have decided to extend the wavelengths up to 10 micron by using chalcogenide fibers. So we have collaborated with Leproux and also Optics, the other French startup specialized in chalcogenide fibers. And we have introduced a 10 micron supercontinuum laser covering up to more than 9.5 micron in the mid-infrared, an average power more than 10 milliwatts. And we have performed lifetime test with this source. Today we are at more 2,500 hours, and the laser is still running. Just some word for the evolution of products at LEUKOS. So we have started in 2005 to introduce our first product. We were focused at this time for the blue and the UV wavelength generation. So we have introduced the first laser emitting blue wavelengths with a low power, 20 milliwatts, 8 kilohertz revision rate. It was based on microchip lasers. And during the years, we have increased the power of the laser by using other pump laser, fiber laser, for example, Modlock lasers. And also we have developed some specific lasers for specific application. For example, in 2008, we have developed a 2 kilohertz with very low timing jitter laser for pump and probe spectroscopy. In 2009, we have developed a special laser with 2 outputs for cars application. then the mid-IR supercontinuum laser, and today we have some products with several watts of average power based on modlock lasers, and also lasers for supercontinuum generation. Just some words, but we got a lot of very interesting talks about the application of this kind of lasers. So we had a very interesting talks of DAMAE Medical for the OCT and the fast in vivo detection of skin cancer. With this kind of laser, you can also do a high resolution imaging for breast carcinoma detection, for example, using the near infrared part of the spectrum. We have also done some experiment for flow cytometry with the company Horiba Medical in France. We have used the supercontinuum to replace several monochromatic lasers in the visible. And on the left, you can see also the confocal microscope from Leica, equipped with NKT Photonics laser. So they can excite a lot of fluorophore with only one source, which is the supercontinuum laser. So yeah, that's all for me today. I thank you for your attention, and of course, I'm ready to answer some questions. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Guillaume. Thanks a lot for joining us and bringing a bit of your family here today. So let's say, I would first maybe look at your supply chain, let's say, and because we have a couple of your friends afterwards for the application. So maybe I would ask Samuel if you want to comment on this, on your collaboration with the LEUKOS from Leproux side.
Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
please.
Yeah, I think that the collaboration we have with LEUKOS is a perfect example of what we want to develop at Leproux. We were the first company to commercialize mid-infrared supercontinuum laser, because this kind of laser mainly relies on fiber and on fiber integration. It's a matter of reliability and at the end cost structure. So we realized rather quickly that making a prototype is very different from industrializing a laser, and very different from having a deep knowledge and understanding about what happens. At Leproux, we are fiber manufacturers. We are not physicists. We are not experts in linear effects and so on. LEUKOS and Guillaume is an expert in that. So we could see a very great complementarity, because grace of that, we are able to do much better than alone. But I insist on the integration, the collaboration. We disclose many critical and sensitive information, technical information, in order to obtain good results, because Guillaume insisted on reliability. It's really key. It's very important, because it's about an emerging technology. I'm talking about mid-infrared supercontinuum, and we have to prove that it's very reliable. So it's very critical.
Very good. Thanks a lot. That's a proof of what means being collaborating. Really, is hard work, and also sharing is caring. What do you say? So that's what is also caring for then your potential end user of the technology. Guillaume, you want to maybe make a comment on the otherwise? What is the challenge that you would like to overcome? I mean, you have a solid partner in Samuel. Is there something else that you would like, as you hear, Christmas wish list? It's time now to think about Christmas. If you have something else, maybe in your full technology, that you would say, if this would get better, would help me. Do you have something in your mind?
Yes, of course. We develop supercontinuum lasers as components. So today we would like to have more and more partners for integration of these lasers, especially for the visible one and the mid-infrared one. So we start to have some collaboration with good industrial partners. And we know that, as Deepak was saying at NKT Photonics, this is an emerging technology. 20 years for a technology is not a lot. We know that it is starting to be industrial now. So we are looking for partners for We can develop new supercontinuum sources with special spectrum, special repetition rate. We can adapt the product for applications. So yes, we will be very interested to have new partners for supercontinuum integration, and we know that many applications are ready to have a supercontinuum inside. Yes.
Perfect. Yes. And we know that already people are using it. So of course, let's listen to more collaboration also for LEUKOS for more integration. But let's talk now with someone who already is using them. So we have Philippe here from XLIM Research. So thanks a lot for being here today. So far quiet, but because he has something to show us now. And so the floor goes to Philippe.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay,
and we can see the slides, so
yeah,
there you go.
Okay, so thank you, Francesca, for the introduction. Yeah, it's a big pleasure to be here today, speaking around supercontinuum sources. So following Guillaume's talk, I will develop a particular application which is called Huss imaging. So Huss vibrational imaging is a nice approach for operating label-free bioimaging using such supercontinuum sources. So basically, a Huss system is based on 4 parts. We have here the laser unit, here the microscopy unit, the spectrometer unit, and the data processing unit. And today we will focus on the laser side, of course. So to do broadband or multiplex Huss, so Huss stands for coherent anti-Stokes Raman scattering. To do broadband Huss or multiplex Huss, we have to face a number of challenges related to the laser side. First, we need a dual output laser delivering both monochromatic pump and broadband Stokes. This is what you can see here in terms of spectra. You have here, for example, the infrared monochromatic pump, here the infrared supercontinuum, and here the spectral range in which we can detect the coarse signal. But we also need to have some essential features like the pump spectral bandwidth that needs to be limited because we make a spectral measurement. So if we want to acquire rich information from the sample, we have to use a setup with a good spectral resolution. We also need peak power at the pump, which is essential for operating Huss since it is a nonlinear process. And also, and this is a very important, a key point, we need to have a good synchronization between pump and Stokes pulses. Otherwise, the coarse process doesn't occur. So all of that can be seen here in this scheme, where you see here a pump laser, a photonic crystal fiber here, and at the output of this PCF with a collimator, you can have a broadband Stokes wave, and here one part of the pump laser can be used as the pump, and all of that is available here. This part is available in this box that Guillaume mentioned previously, which is available as a laser package from more than 10 years and delivering free space infrared pump and fiber broadband supercontinuum wave. And by this way, you can operate Huss imaging. But I would like to mention that more recently, the LEUKOS guys introduced this new scheme of supercontinuum laser specifically dedicated to Huss. In this case, both waves output from fibers. So this is a dual fiber output laser source. So previous one was initially in the nanosecond regime. Now we can work with 50 picosecond pulses at 1 megahertz rep rate. And this is a really big step towards simplified multiplex cars. And this is essential for, this is essential for developing the bioimaging applications of supercontinuum sources, and especially the chemically selective imaging modality. So these are just examples of results that we could obtain by using such supercontinuum source. Here on the left, you can see label-free cell imaging. So we have different chemical compounds in these cells that can be highlighted thanks to the excitation by the supercontinuum, dual output supercontinuum. And on the right, you can see tissue imaging. So here, this is adipose tissue. You can see the cells of adipose tissue, which are adipocytes. So you can see in red the cells with the lipids inside. You can see the proteins in blue, and in green, you have the extracellular matrix. And finally, in white, the blood vessels. So combining all this information, you can have a rich diagnosis of an eventual pathology. So my last slide will be about the future of such dedicated supercontinuum sources. So actually, we would like to go above cars. We have interest in multimodal imaging, combining different physical processes, so different modalities for investigating the samples. So usually we combine cars with second harmonic generation or with two-photon fluorescence microscopy. And to combine all these modalities, the dream characteristics of such supercontinuum source would be to have a fully electronic or digital control of many characteristics, like the power and bandwidth or spectrum at the supercontinuum output, but also full control of the pump power. You remember we need peak power at the pump. We also would like to control the rep rate, the pulse duration with a sort of on-demand control. And why not dreaming of electronically controlling the timing between both pulses, pump and stops. So by this way, of course, we could have, let's say, a dream source that could really allow to develop the bioimaging using such sources. So to end, I would just mention that we will introduce this these activities around bioimaging based on supercontinuum excitation in January at Next Photonics West. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. So really, we have to be all at Photonics West next year. I mean, we wanted to be there anyway, but now we have more and more reasons to be there. Thanks a lot, Philippe, for the introduction. So I know that there was a discussion in the chat about your pump source, but Guillaume already answered our colleague from Toptica. So maybe you wanted to comment on this, or there is something open that is still your curiosity? Now we stop sharing in the meanwhile. So we see back in the room. There we are. Yeah. Now, Nariman. So it's all clear, right? So they moved from nanosecond, then there was a picosecond source. So this was the transition, right? The important.
Yes. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, and then Philippe, if you I don't know if you have another. So to get there, so in Photonics West, you will tell us already what you will reach for these multimodal new systems. Is there something that by then still you're looking for? So in the typical EPIC questions, what can you do for them? What can they do for you?
Yeah, actually, of course, we have a historical collaboration with a LEUKOS company, of course. But we need partners in microscopy, spectroscopy, and also, why not, data processing and software, of course, because we aim at developing the whole system. So, of course, we do not have all competencies to do it. So a key point is spectroscopy. because our information is coming from the spectroscopic measurements. So this will be maybe the key technology.
Very good. So that's what we are here for the shopping list. So very good. So, you know, Philippe is there. So if someone wants to comment on this, because I mean, there are here the people also talking about the software earlier in this very room. So you know that there is some already connections that you can make today. And now maybe if there are no immediate comments, I would like to go also to the next story. So part of the story. So it's a pleasure to have here today also Ivan from Recent. Thanks a lot for joining us today. So we talk about another application, and then we maybe wrap up with Jose at the end about this final more spectroscopy, OCT, and cars experiences we have. The floor is yours, Ivan. We see everything. Yeah. So
thank you for introduction. Yeah, I will mostly talk about application of mid-infrared supercontinuum sources with some focus on OCT and spectroscopy. So just to a little bit introduce the institution where I work. Recent is the Research Center for Non-Destructive Testing, and it's a non-profit company that's located at Science Park of Johannes Kepler University in Linz, Austria. And we are working with all more or less kinds of entity. It's optics and also an acoustics. I belong to optics, so infrared and Raman spectroscopy and OCT groups. So that's two fields where I apply supercontinuum sources. And I would like just to start with something new to what has been done recently. It's new mid-infrared Fourier domain OCT system based on time-encoded detection. Yeah, it's so the main novelty here. So this is like a sketch of this OCT system. The main novelty here is that we have another type of spectrometer. So this part is more or less similar, just a microinterferometer. But here I built such a scanning spectrometer. It's more or less 2-hole monochromator, or I don't know how to call it. It's a 4F system formed by mirrors, and then we conjugate the plane of grating and conjugate of scanner, and then by more or less scanning the angle, we can select the spectral component being sensed. So it's based on point detector, which is nice because in mid-infrared we don't have line carriers. So it's kind of a virtual line camera. And this is the real signal, how it looks like. So it's in some interference. I think you can see fringes. And this is control signal. This is a spectrum which I used for OCT imaging. It's from LEUKOS source, and just how the system looks like on table. It's already for at-line measurements. Actually, just to explain how this time encoded works in principle and how signals looks like, it's nice to see this short video. I hope then this is enough. So this is the scanning in one direction going back, and we see more or less the spectrum of supercontinuum. In this case, it's Ziblan source from NKT. And what I'm doing now, it's live signal. I'm just inserting different polymers, and we can clearly see the absorption bands. This is some CH staging vibrations. And at first I used them for calibration. So actually, if we then calculate absorbance, it would be impossible to say where is this spectrum we get from this time-encoded system, let's say, or from FTI, which is standard, very big like spectrometer and very expensive. So these are two very similar spectra. And then if we put this spectrometer in OCT, we would get something like that. So some interference pattern, which then used for OCT imaging. The covered spectral range is from around 3.2 to 4.5 microns. Yeah, and just some performances and polarization of the system. So because of very broad range, it was possible to go down to 7.6 microns in axial resolution, which is quite nice for mid-infrared OCT. That's all allowed actually by brightness and beam quality of supercontinuum. We also characterized it, and it was NKT source. It was around 1.1 m square, and for LEUKOS we also characterized it was around 1.2. And then sensitivity was quite also okay. Even so, here we don't have this multiplex advantage, but we could get something like 80 dBs. And yeah, also actually such performances are also very important in spectroscopy and, for example, microspectroscopy. I just inserted here some microspectroscopic images of red blood cells. Yeah, and I think Ole already explained why it's important and to go in mid-infrared with OCT is that we can probe something that we cannot really probe with standard OCT in near-infrared. Here is also some scans of ceramics. So this is ceramic 3D printed part. This also 3D printed parts. So this some defects we can distinguish and characterize. Also, such a curvature is a defect which occurs during thermal treatment. This is just nice imaging of some complex structured sample. And this green part, so it's an intermediate stage in production of these ceramics where the polymers, where these ceramics particles are still embedded in polymers. And yeah, it's also of interest in some cases. And then just some tablet coatings can be analyzed. And this is just my hobby to a little bit look at some painting objects. Yeah, don't have a lot of time now to do it, but it's very nice application also. And yeah, and some composite materials. Yeah, and actually, what I would like, how I would like to finish is a little bit with the question, because it's very in trend to increase power and bandwidth. Of course, it's cool when the bandwidth is broader, when we cover the whole mid-infrared. It would be really passive for mid-infrared spectroscopy. But there is another things to think. I think it's peak power, and I call it so peak power advantage because everyone is trying to increase pulse repetition rate. But if we stick to, for example, to the same average power, it would mean that we will have lower peak power. So these are just some pulses I measured of supercontinuum, and the blue one and orange one is equivalent CV source. And we can see that the average power of these two theoretical sources is the same. But of course, if we think about some abstract absorbance, so the detectability threshold, if we have some real absorbing material and we have certain amount of molecules that absorb radiation, then we have kind of threshold. And then our CV source would be just completely absorbed and will hit actually the sample only. But our pulses, they would suddenly jump above this threshold and would be detectable if we can. Of course, it would be some convolution with detector response, but we can detect it. So, and it's very interesting to think about because increase of repetition rate, we have more averaging and therefore lower noise, which is normally done for supercontinuum. And then if we but if we go to high peak power systems, then we have higher signals, and somewhere should be probably optimum, and it's something interesting to investigate and think about. That's what I would like to tell, and also what actually about peak brightness, because normally brightness is defined for average power, but if it's peak brightness, then actually suddenly supercontinuum can go even higher than QCLs, which are very bright. Yeah, and there were some also results here with low average power but high peak power source from NKT. We had with just 16 milliwatts in mid-infrared of average power, but it's 40 kilohertz source. And actually in OCT, it was very difficult to adjust the source to align it because the beam is almost invisible even with view cards after the system. But the signals we got and the images are pretty good. Yeah, that's what I want to say. Yeah,
thank you very much, Ivan. This is fantastic. This is, I mean, for me, this is the perfect slide to close the meeting. But I have to say that it seems to me that you had the perfect laser solution. Of course, you could have collaborations with others that can go longer in wavelength, but you have the perfect laser solution. Am I correct that you have a problem with the detectors, with the cameras? Is that still a challenge for you? Looks to me.
It's just generally a challenge in mid-infrared, the detection. So, yeah, for example, Olebank is applying conversion system. We are also playing around with these virtual pixels and scanning, or before it was pyroelectric. Other people use some quantum correlations, but yeah, that's just general problem. But I guess it's not about detection today.
In a meeting like today at 5 o'clock, and we have many meetings on detection, Ivan, but in a meeting like today, I really wanted to say that I expected from the industry to share with us some challenges, and on this, it has been truly fascinating. The challenges that we had discussed with you on the last 2 hours on supercontinuum generation lasers are fourfold. On the one hand, we talk about we need more success stories like Leproux today, more companies developing specialty optical fibers, C-blank, chalcogenide, PCF, hollow core. The laser manufacturers in Europe want to have a supply chain in Europe, so we need to push that a bit better. We also need fiber components operating in the mid-infrared. I'm talking about the splitters, connectors. We actually share the challenge that we had on actually splicing directly polarization control fiber and a single mode fiber, and we had a problem with that. The miniaturization is the next generation problem. There, LIGENTEC really presented silicon nitride as a platform for that integration. I think there is the next step to bring these supercontinuum generation lasers to a paradigm shift in size. And finally, definitely last but not least, what I just said to him and we discussed the entire day, for the end users to consider this technology as the problem solver for non-destructive testing. They also need very fast cameras. Thank you, Nair, for being the detection source that really made a solution for that problem. And with this, all I have to say is it was truly fascinating. Thank you for spending All Saints Day afternoon with us. And that concludes the public part of today's meeting. If you are in our Zoom room, our informal private discussion is about to start. I call it virtual drinks with friends. And we all know follow-up is important. But for now, if you are watching on YouTube, that's where we leave you for today. Thanks to the epic production crew and our sponsors for making today's event possible. More details about upcoming meetings are on our website. And if you want to get in touch with any of the participants, all you have to do is contact me directly and I will make sure you get introduced. It is all about connections. Thanks for being epic.